So let's be clear with one another. If you've ever heard of Jordan Maxwell, what's his name? Russell Pine. He was controlled opposition, and you could prove this to yourself if you fucking took the time. But people don't. So they talk about him and they circulate what he left online, what he was told, what he was tasked, what he was paid to leave online or to record to be left online. So what I'm going to show you real fast, you don't hear this come up because people are still circulating bargain bin versions and or Jordan Maxwell's quote-unquote content, the media he left the masses. And take this with a grain of salt, but it doesn't fucking come up. And yet, everybody you fucking know, they believe in paradigms. They believe in the outlines that they were spoon-fed by our masters. That's what they think they know. That's what they assume reflects reality. And this is why people are further away than ever before in terms of what fucking reflects reality, because they're not thinking about any of this. So take this with a grain of salt. So here's a chessboard, that I do all that other stuff with. Ooh, I want you to think about the word paradigm. Or multiple paradigms, because that's what people have been sold. And this is silly. It's so fucking silly, but you don't hear it come up. And yet you have the kids, again, repeating what Jordan Maxwell said and pretending that it's so fucking insightful. In other words, this is just as good, but it's something you have not heard before. That's why I'm recording this video. Let's do it twofold. Paradigms. How about, and you probably have heard, paradise. Either way, what the fuck do I know? This is something you've never heard before. Here's a question for you. For those of you who are, well, then again, it's going to be varying levels of creativity that will be involved in the process. Initially, I usually think of artsy endeavors, but even if you're compiling a technical report, there's a level of creativity, not so much ingenuity, but you got to fucking think about it. That's the point, obviously. The reason I mention this is if you've ever put together a project and you projected how long it would take you to fulfill your commitment and or, what is it? What's the word? It's pay dirt. It's when it would come to fruition. It's hard to wait if you're excited about it, if you're truly invested in it, is my point. And that's why I was thinking more so creative artsy projects opposed to something that's clinical, possibly, something related to work. The reason I'm rattling this off is what I've glimpsed and what I keep alluding to. It's hard to sit on this stuff, which I keep telling you guys. How should I put it? The more I dig into this, the more it unveils. And this is just how it's going to be until, I meet. And that's the tricky part. So some of it I just keep trying to refine so that you get the cleanest possible presentation, straight to the point, no fluff, just telling you here, this is what it appears to be, consider these words, and I build on it. It's roughly what I've been doing. Now, the scary thing is if you think of those projects that I just rattled off, what I'm talking about has to do with, quite literally, anything you could possibly fucking think about, and that's the scariest fucking part about it. You can apply this to anything and everything, which means when I keep opening up these other doors or, pulling back veil upon veil upon veil, it's heavy as fuck. It's beautiful, but it's a lot. It's a hell of a lot. Just, if I'm right. And keep in mind, I'm pretty fucking sure in a number of ways I am. Some I'm still skeptical about, and I want you to be skeptical about all of it if this ever does come to fruition, if I ever do release all this crap. And that's still dependent on, it still hinges on who picks it up, because, you guys are going to have to, it's going to be a book, so you guys would have to buy it, you'd have to go through it, and you'd have to take notes, and you'd have to think about it. You'd have to compare and contrast. You'd have to do your own research after the fact, even once I spoon feed you shit. And most people aren't going to do that because our masters are doing away with the skills needed to do that. And most people don't see that for what it is. This is when I say, what the fuck do I know? There's so much more I want to rattle off, but I'm a broken record on this note because this stuff's terribly neat. I mean, yeah. I'm thinking about the aspects of it that relate to health in terms of what we experience. Whether you're new or old to my antics, in other words, whether you're paying attention, because you can still find things where I teach you things you're not supposed to know, shit people aren't aware of. And if you listen closely, you pay attention to the methods I keep employing. I'm still teaching you guys things, typically speaking daily. But if you're superficially digesting the latest content, you're taking nothing away from it, and you probably assume otherwise. I mean, well, but you really gotta buckle down and try to sort shit out. If you're not actively involved, I usually say, if you're not invested, you're not involved. And that's why things are shit. Yeah. So whether you're, old hat in terms of haunting my accounts or you're brand new here, if I release this stuff, if this ever does happen, it's gonna reshape how you see things in a number of ways, mind you. It will. I guarantee it. What I've put together, it blows me away because I'm still looking for people who have already said what I'm saying across the board in terms of all these subjects, in terms of all these questions, in terms of the points that I make, in terms of the methods that I use, the techniques to derive answers to reality. And I have not found anybody. I'm still looking, and it's possible I'm overlooking. Maybe there's an oversight. It's another reason why I was trying to involve other people, but that runs the risk of one too many slippery slopes because of people's egos and the fact that we are part of a monetary system. I mean, there's one too many things working against you and I in terms of motivation or motivations that run counter to you and I doing good, to you and I doing the right thing. This cuts the other way too in terms of how our masters are manipulating us. And most people assume they don't have masters because they aren't very bright. If they were paying attention, there's nothing but proof. But if you tell somebody that they have masters, this is just an example. Most people will tell you that they don't. Most people tell you that they're so fucking free, they can do whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. They have no masters. Ooh. Think about it. Just fucking think about it. How we live our lives reflects the fact that we have masters. And shit you not. Is the food supply, the food chain and all that other stuff, is that controlled by somebody apart from for the people, by the people? Well, is it, motherfucker? Well, that means you have masters. Somebody else is pulling our strings. And that shit was put in place. You could backtrack that in terms of history and prove what I just said holds water. That a group of people actively manipulated the masses to such a degree that we gave over all power related to our food source, to the food supply and the food chain. How should I put it? The people who are producing food. And now it's what? It's mass manufactured, it's full of genetically modified poison, and the list goes on. Because people didn't do the right thing. If you apply that thought to what people call, esoteric or occult, to the fucking answers that you want, that people will wax poetic about online, but they don't have, and they don't know how to derive. That's the type of shit I can teach you. But the reason that is, some people would say it went underground. I labor under the illusion or the delusion, or at least the thought that people have not known these things for a very long fucking time. What I've rediscovered is something that a small group of people know. And that's why everything else has been bent. It's all been corrupted. If you talk about spheres of influence, the jurisdictions that I'm always complaining about, what I'm talking about and what our masters likely know, where do I got I don't have a red one handy, but it's even smaller than that shit, if you think of the circumpunct and things along those lines. And what people are talking about, for the most part these days especially, is way out here. This is a shit example, but people are so far from the fucking mark, it's not even funny. Or the marker, the Sharpie in this case. Just to paint a muddy picture. But most people would assume otherwise. Here, let's do this too. I don't have masters. You have fucking masters, and there's nothing but proof. But you're too stupid to fucking realize it, so you're going to claim otherwise based on your assumptions. You're based on popular opinion and belief. It's a belief-based system. If you looked into it, you'd start getting knocked down a couple pegs. Start taking the piss out of you. But you'd have to put your ego on the shelf to appreciate that and to take this fucking journey. This applies to all this stuff that I'm talking about. This is the process that I went through. And it was very hard to realize that everything that I thought was true to begin with was absolutely fucking upside down, inside out, and backwards. And no one wants to hear that, including myself. You and I have been misled. We've been walked down the primrose path, and most people do not realize this. But there are all these answers online. This must be the truth. Is the internet for the people, by the people? Or is this the DARPA internet? Nothing but proof. You can prove that to yourself. I keep just scoffing at the fact that people haven't figured this out. Is social media, social engineering platforms, Facebook, Instagram, even the China app, TikTok. You figure China would charge us, but they don't. Twitter, all of these, are they free? Are these free and available to you? Can you effortlessly download this to your cellular device that you were trained to carry around? And the answer is yes. Why? Why do you think that is? Because we have fucking masters and we're being manipulated. Apply what I just said to anything you could possibly think of in terms of quote-unquote society. Now, this is where people start getting further away from what's what again. They're going to start talking about the Matrix. And when we talk about a Matrix, you probably should be thinking about what you're made from, where we live, but no. Instead, corrupted outlines have diluted that and turned it into adult fairy tales, which are propaganda, which are rabbit holes that go nowhere and lead to this shit again. So now you got people talking about simulation theory and the multiverse of fucking made up horse shit. Instead of a grassroots approach, where we are, what this is, how it works, what fucking reflects reality based on replicable evidence-based research. Otherwise known as quote-unquote science, even though science it didn't last long. It was hijacked damn near immediately. It's like the punk movement that was dead in a fucking week. That's the analogy I usually use. Relegated to belief systems and horse shit. Again, popular opinion and hearsay. But most people would tell you otherwise. They would adamantly argue otherwise. Because they aren't very bright. They could change this fact. But most aren't going to do that. I keep dragging this shit out. I said take the journey. So most people are just going to hang out here. And they're going to jerk each other off in the circle jerk that is the truth community. And they're never going to make any progress towards what fucking reflects reality. Which means the system as a whole, which technically would be this jazz or that marker cap that I was talking about, all this other stuff is just phony crap. It's garbage. It's a game of make-believe. But what I'm driving at is the more of these spheres of influence, these jurisdictions that are created, this means that you and I are subjugated. This also means that this for the people, by the people thing gets further and further away. In other words, you can think of it as a speck disappearing into the distance, if I were to draw this all the way back. Another way to think of this is what does reflect reality becomes more and more disharmonious with every single one of these spheres or rings, or you could think of it as nesting Matryoshka dolls. I think that's what it's called. Think of natal charts. There's more than one, mind you, but one of them that you can look up, and I always forget if it's Eastern or Western India. But think of a square or a diamond at the center, and then think of nesting squares. You could think of it that way too if you want. Just to paint a picture. I'm not I'm not telling you to buy into the globe horse shit or the fucking flat earth, but most people would probably assume that if I didn't state that in this video. Both of those are a master's corrupted outlines. Both of those have to do with this shit. They have nothing to do with this. That's why they've been spoon-fed to people on the DARPA internet and or CIA-sanctioned novels at the front of house, in bookstores. But people haven't figured this out because they don't think they have masters. I'm not only going to be, I can reshape how you see things, and it's going to fucking flip your lid. Now, I've said this a bunch. This is when most people will just tell us we have to know things are bad. We need to know it now, please. And that's how people react. And speaking from experience, one too many fucking times over. If you haven't figured out the things that I said in this video on your own, that means you are part of the problem and you need to start to take the journey. If you don't know how to do that, part of the journey is pulling your head out of your ass and thinking for yourself. So don't ask somebody else, what do we do? Sit with it. Think about it. If you're not doing that, what I can teach you, and what you guys still... I talk about what I can teach you, but another way to think of it, like I think I already said in this video, is people want fucking answers. Case in point, they're going to ask you, what do we do? And or they're combing the internet like Neo in that 1999 film, The Matrix, but they're digesting the latest content, that outer sphere of superficial shit. They don't have eyes to see. They don't know where to look. They don't understand what they're being shown in plain sight. What people are talking about is not occult, which means it is not hidden. It's another reason why I keep saying that it's just a bunch of superficial shit that people are just jerking each other off with. If you haven't figured out any of this shit and you aren't actively trying to, you're useless. You're a useful idiot. To our masters, not to me or anybody else, who means well and might be worth their fucking salt. And you can assume what you will about me. Maybe you don't think I am. Maybe you think I'm a bag of fucking meat, and that's fine. People are welcome to their opinions. Everyone has a prerogative. But if you put in the time, I used to joke around a lot about this. I'd make your brains drizzle out of your ear. I started to explain some things to you guys. I started to explain some of my methods and what I went through. But that contradicts me telling you to pull your head out of your ass and take this fucking journey so that you are useful to others, including yourself. Hopefully to me. It's a symbiotic system. In other words, you're doing the right fucking thing. Opposed to exactly what our fucking masters want, which is why we still have access to the DARPA internet. This stuff's exciting. I want to show people. What I want is a inner group, a core group of people I could show some of these things to, and they wouldn't run out and corrupt it. They wouldn't just hijack it and take the little bit that I show them and just drag it through the fucking mud. That's what people have done in the past. It'd be neat if I had just a core group of people I could trust, that I could place my faith in, and they wouldn't fuck me over. But more importantly, they wouldn't fuck the information over. That's exactly what people have done in the past. So the bigger picture that I've painted in recent times is more important than, the early iterations of what I knocked out. It's another reason why I'm so fucking obtuse these days, because I was leaving answers online every single day. I was hashing things out and throwing you guys all kinds of fucking bones. And most people took me for a ride. Before I do fuck off, and this is important to say, there's a few of you guys, and in recent times, you guys have been, there are some people out there who have been very generous and who have helped me out with the Cash App stuff. When I started out, I didn't ask anybody for any money when I started out, and that covers, I think, 6 or 7 years. I think approximately. I'm like a time traveler. I can't keep this shit straight. Only in recent times did I start putting a Cash App handle in there, and by recent times, maybe 4 or 5 years, I think. And if some of you remember, you can correct me. Feel free to be like, nah, dude, it was this long, or I don't remember. And in the last couple years, there's a few of you guys who have thrown me some bones, and I really appreciate that. Prior to that, when I started doing it, no one was doing it initially. There's one fella who's in my inner circle who is really sweet, and he did initially. And it blew me away that he was even doing that. And the same thought still holds true with those of you out there who have done that. You guys have literally saved the fucking day with some of the stupid shit I get up to and how fucked I am financially based on my poor choices, mind you. You give and you take. There's a level of sacrifice in order to obtain certain things. There's a process to this. It's a ritual. All routine is ritual. And it's part of what I've gone through, and I've told you guys about some of this online. And little stuff too. A lot of it's first world woes. I haven't driven in over a decade and blah, 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 shit like that. Including, but not limited to, isolation. If you're not sitting with these thoughts and you have other people buzzing around, it's going to trip you up, especially if they're thinking about all those outer spheres of influence. Whether you realize it or not, in passing, they're going to mislead you and drag you back into that muck. It's a shit way to put it, especially when you care about somebody and that's what they want to talk about. That's how they think about reality, their version of bullshit. I don't think I usually bring this up, but that will fuck you up. That will fuck you up. I went through, there was a period, this was years ago. Well, here, I'll tell you guys a story. If anybody's watching this shit. Years ago, I was working for a company. Maybe I shouldn't tell you which company. And I was on a contract, and I found out that they were going to terminate my employment the day I found this out. So I I broke a finger so that I could collect unemployment. And when I told them about this, they tried to talk me out of it because they were trying to burn me. And I was adamant. I told them, no, I'm going to the fucking hospital. I have to. Got to fill out documentation, right? That's important. And they kept trying to talk me out of it. Just pieces of shit. Pieces of shit. Either way. But I was also being shisty since they were just going to pull the rug out from under me randomly. It's because they hired somebody else in who was doing both aspects of the job. You could think of a facility. One guy worked on one side, I worked on the other side. And he was willing to do both for just a slight pay increase. And that's why they cut me. That's the gist of it. Roughly, yeah. So either way, so that's my story. Yeah. I had another thought to that. Too many thoughts. I knew I got ahead of myself and spaced while I was telling you a story. So I said all routine is ritual. I told you I did something shisty so that I could afford myself a chunk of time. It'd be a block of time where I was being a leech, even though I used to look at that poorly, but I don't anymore because the system's fucked. Oh God, here's another story. So my life fell apart back in 2012. I ended up trying to, another gal, I let her live with me, wacky stuff. Some of it has to do with the Nocturnist. A lot of it has to do with the Nocturnist, either way. She used to tell me that she wasn't above living on food stamps, EBT stuff. And me back then, prideful or however you want to think of it, I was raised to frown on that. So it was only once I was down and out, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to apply with you. And so I did. And I was fucking shocked by the fact that I was eating better based on that crap than I was when I was busting my fucking hump, and getting financially raped with unconstitutional taxation. It blew me fucking away. It reshaped my perspective of things because I was being a good citizen, which is to say a good debt slave prior to that. So this helped me, in some ways, to do what I did down the line in terms of getting that unemployment through the means that I was alluding to. So, point being, it afforded me a block of time to where this is when I started. I think that's roughly, is that the first leg of it or the second? No, that was down the line, so it wasn't then. It's hard for me to keep track of all this stuff since I am like a time traveler in terms of these moments in my life. So much of it is skewed now because of the research, and it's kind of scary. But it's also long bouts of isolation, and it's very important. So what I was getting at is most people, including myself otherwise, we're distracted. We're entertained. We are lulled into a daydream. And it's so that you don't do these things and you don't think about what matters and you have no fucking priorities. I shit you not. It's by design. And it works really, really well because people are, fat and happy and drunk. That's one way to put it. Which means, why would you question anything? No one. I used to joke around, if somebody doesn't kick in your door and turn off Game of Thrones, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to care. And you're not. Same applies to anything and everything that you have right now in terms of creature comforts. If somebody doesn't take that away from you, somebody doesn't, come in and harm your family, it's very unlikely that you're going to do anything worthwhile. You're going to squander your life. You're going to act like everybody else, primarily speaking, for the most part. And so it goes. A new generation will just be dumbed down even more, and they'll become even more subservient. And that's what we see. That's what tracks. I mean, just look at all the wet farts today. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. But yeah, so with the routine and ritual and what have you, most people don't get a block of time like that in their lifetime to work on anything. And that's part of what I did as a sacrifice. And I mean, some people will probably see it otherwise, just like my younger version of me. The younger version of me would have probably wanted to kick my ass for doing that. And not doing, not living up to all the ideals and standards and the ideology that I was raised with. I was raised in a blue-collar family, and work was important. When other people, it's that if you got time to lean, you got time to clean philosophy. Or if you're into, working in a kitchen, if you got time to lean, you got time to cuisine, as I've been told in kitchens before. I think that's kind of funny. Yeah. So it flew in the face of things, and that type of stuff, it ate away at it bothered me. It still bothers me in some ways. It ran counter to my character. In many ways, it was a small death. And I've had many of these where I'm doing things that aren't, how should I explain it? They're diametrically opposed to how I used to function, which means it's like two different versions of myself. And that's part of how I obtained what I've obtained, because I had to put that aside. I had to put a lot of that behind me. I had to rethink things. I had to pull my head out of my ass, as I often say, even though that's pretty vague. And I don't expect you guys to go through the same fucking routine. Everyone has to find their way. And it's tricky. And you do get a lot of it wrong. I've stressed this a lot. You'll get more wrong more often than not in the beginning. And for the most part, it will seem like you're never going to make any fucking progress. Again, speaking from experience, I'm pretty sure, in the beginning, I was just smearing shit on the wall. But I was hoping it might stick and mean something. And that's shitty. That's a horrible fucking way to explain it, since I usually use that to knock the kids out there that are just jerking each other off. I don't have a better analogy yet because I haven't eaten this oatmeal, and I apologize for that. But initially, I wasn't making any progress, but I was taking notes, and I was comparing, contrasting, and I was dancing back, and I was reviewing this shit. Meanwhile, I was also pushing forward and trying to figure something out. I was trying to reason out things, and I wasn't using just one subject. One paradigm that our masters spoon-fed people, and they repeat because they aren't very bright and they're not willing to challenge themselves, let alone the paradigm or the paradigms. Yeah. In other words, if you're busting your hump with a job and all that other stuff, and you got friends and you have all these obligations, you guys go out for brunch or whatever the fuck you do, on the weekends, or you got to go see the folks, and do this, that, and the other thing. It's important. It's very fucking important, especially when it comes to family. Don't get me wrong. But these moments will also trip up trying to make progress. So this is where you ask yourself, which is which and what is what. And it will come down to sacrifice to some degree. Just as you can't have both. And it's because it's a binary system as well. Yeah. But people assume otherwise these days because of those spheres of influence that I was talking about, because they aren't very bright. All right, now I'll shut the fuck up. A word of caution. So again, speaking from experience, in terms of cataloging the information, but more specifically, knocking out this giant book that I've been writing. This has happened throughout the years. We're human, so we're going to make mistakes. I've said this numerous times in the past. I'm pretty fucking sure. But again, this is just coming from me. But I imagine you guys, some of you out there who have been paying attention, do see it and do think similarly. I have more answers than the other kids. And that thought stands to reason if you truly just think about what I've left online in comparison to the fucking garbage you see online. It's another reason why I also will call out accounts and challenge them when they're shopping around flat out fucking propaganda and they send me a social engineering sticker because I hurt their feelings. So here's the point. And let's see, I was hoping to show you guys an analogy. What I really want to show you is exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to do that. Let's use owl pipes. Why not? They're very similar. They're very, very fucking similar. Let's see which one we should do this with. So here. So imagine that this is the outline that I put in the book. Okay? An owl pipe. It looks like an owl. Ooh. And no, I'm not promoting molestation, murder, or any of that other stuff having to do with kids because I brought up a fucking owl. Just so you know, it's just the first thing I could think of. But feel free to assume whatever you want. So I've knocked out the outline. Time has passed. And then I've realized maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not this. So sometimes you end up doing that. And you think, no, maybe it is this. Hold on, no, it is. It does check out. It was a matter of fucking perspective. I just had to think about it. Then you think, no, wait, no. It actually is this. And this is where you guys will probably get kind of bored by this. Most likely. So you look a little bit closer and you say, well, motherfucker, how did I not see this? It should have been this the whole fucking time. And then years drop off the map. You don't review this for a while. You think you got it right. Yeah? Then you see something. Something opens your eyes. And you realize that it was this the whole time. By turning it, you got it right. But this was a misstep. You could have misled people. You would have been wrong. Subtle, but you would have been wrong. This was always it. Your gut impulse was right to begin with, but you did have it skewed because our masters turn everything upside down, inside out, and fucking backwards. Hopefully you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. This isn't the best example. Thanks for hanging out.